The problem is he was like a famous kid, and then no one took him seriously.
Yeah.
But
and then he started too with like more spectacle-ish fight.
Back to the basics.
It really is.
Oh, the uppercut, and he took it. Jake Paul took it.
Yeah.
I think he went into that fight knowing that was probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the big win for him would be that he was even willing to do it and that he could do well for a little bit.
Yeah.
Down to the body with the right hand for Anthony Joshua. There's a big left.
Back to the basics. That's where it always begins. No slogans, no spectacle. Just fists, breath, fear, and consequence. The punch landed clean. A right hand to the body. Heavy, deliberate. Anthony Joshua stepped in, planted his weight, and drove it home. Jake Paul absorbed it. He took it. The crowd reacted. But something about the moment felt muted, not wrong, just restrained. As if everyone in the building understood that what they were watching had limits. Invisible ones. Moments later, a left hand followed. Not rushed, not desperate. Controlled. It looked like boxing, but it didn't feel like boxing. Some fighters walk into a ring believing they can win. Others walk in knowing exactly what is going to happen. Sometimes a victory isn't survival. Sometimes it's simply showing up, proving you were brave enough to try. Jake Paul knew. On some level, he had to know. The real win wasn't beating Anthony Joshua. The real win was standing across from him, under the lights, long enough for the world to say,
when I'm going to take your soul and you're either going to give up or you're going to get knocked out. And unless you have that instinct, you just will never be
long enough for the world to say, at least he tried. And for a moment, just a moment, it worked. But boxing has a long memory. At first, Jake Paul was just a famous kid, a loud one, internet money, internet confidence. Nobody in the boxing world took him seriously. That wasn't jealousy. It was instinct. Boxing is built on scars, not subscribers. Then the fights escalated. Bigger names, bigger narratives, bigger checks. The bouts became more spectacular, more produced. And slowly, quietly, the line between competition and performance began to blur. Joe Rogan didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He didn't need to. He simply asked a question out loud that everyone else was thinking. And once a question like that exists, it doesn't go away. Risk is the contract. Boxing has always lived in uncertainty. That's not poetry. It's structure. The entire foundation of the sport is built on one uncontrollable truth. Once the bell rings, nobody, not promoters, not fighters, not fans, can fully control what happens next. Skill collides with fear. Preparation crashes into instinct. Momentum shifts. Damage accumulates. A single mistake.
I'm sorry to have to ask you this, but blink twice if that Jake Paul fight was set up.
Blink twice.
I know you probably
I
can't
don't
say
never
that.
blink because I got these liberty eyes. A lot of people wonder that, but think about this. If I say, Rampage, I'm going to pay you $2 million, right? Let this dude beat you.
Can erase a lifetime of work. That uncertainty is not a flaw in boxing. It is the product. When fans buy a fight, they aren't just buying punches. They are buying risk. That risk is the unspoken contract between the fighter and the audience. And the moment that contract feels negotiable, everything starts to shake. Blink twice if that fight was set up. It sounded like a joke. It wasn't, because the real question wasn't about proof. It was about possibility. And in boxing, possibility alone is dangerous enough. Think about it. If someone told you, I'll give you $2 million to lose, what would you do? Some fighters would walk away insulted. Others would hesitate. And that hesitation, that pause, is where trust dies. Crossover boxing and the rise of narrative control. Crossover boxing didn't break the sport overnight. It stretched it. Influencers brought money, views, a new audience.
I don't feel disrespected, number one.
Yeah.
Right? That ain't enough money.
Yeah.
But I got paid in the Jake fights. For me to do that, I gotta be willing to walk away for good, and it gotta set me up for a while, at least. Not
part is undeniable. But they also brought something boxing has always resisted: narrative management. Opponents were selected carefully. Timelines were designed. Losses were delayed. Risks were calculated not in terms of danger, but brand value. Fights began to feel episodic, like chapters in a larger content arc. At first, it was speculation, internet noise, message board paranoia. Then it became mainstream conversation. And once that happens, perception becomes reality. Joe Rogan's commentary hit differently because it wasn't technical criticism. It wasn't about footwork or jab selection. It was about combat psychology. The sacred space fighters enter when they believe everything is real and nothing is protected. When a veteran speaks calmly about something feeling off, people listen. Because real fighters don't confuse violence with content. Effort was...
He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
Yeah.
The problem is he was like a famous kid, and then no one took him seriously.
Yeah.
The standard. Jake Paul trained hard. That was never the issue. Effort has never been the price of legitimacy in boxing. The price has always been risk against someone who can take something from you. Your record, your health, your future, your control. And when fights are framed as business ventures first and sporting contests second, audiences don't react with hatred. They react with suspicion. Because suspicion isn't emotional, it's analytical. What unsettled people wasn't the idea of promotion. Boxing has always been promoted. It was a suggestion that limits could be discussed behind.
You just will never be a good fighter. So I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start. But as we saw,
Me like sparring
Yeah.
when I watched it, which, you know, look, I paid for it. They got me. I thought it was going to be a real fight.
Closed doors. That pacing could be understood in advance. That outcomes didn't have to be fixed, just contained. At that point, the ring stops being a proving ground and starts feeling like a stage. Delivered, not won. Anthony Joshua didn't celebrate. That mattered. The fight didn't feel won. It felt delivered. 6 rounds like a deadline. Millions of eyes like a quota. No exaggeration. No performance. No public...
The Jake Paul fight didn't feel won. It felt delivered. 6 rounds like a deadline. 33 million live eyes like a quota. Breathwork behind doors timed like ignition.
Spin. Just distance. In boxing, silence from someone who has nothing to gain by staying quiet is rarely accidental. Fighters who have lived inside real consequences know where the lines are and which ones they refuse to cross. The idea that a professional fighter could be managed like a brand inside the ring touches a nerve because it challenges what fighting represents.
A serpent-tongued cue marking the moment fate locked in. Joshua thought the knockout crowned him. He never realized it completed him. The win wasn't triumph. It was transfer.
A brand can be protected. A brand can be repositioned. A brand can be preserved. A fight cannot. Not without becoming something else entirely. When doubt enters the ring.
I don't hate your brother. You guys need to fight guys your same size. When you fought Floyd, you are massive. He did hit you with a fucking bomb and you fucking ate it. He's going to fight Gervonta Davis. Who do you got? Gervonta, I think, hits way harder than Floyd, but he's too...
The moment a fighter believes they're participating in a controlled outcome rather than an open contest, the psychology of combat collapses. Hesitation follows. Commitment fades. Safety becomes ambiguous. And that isn't just unfair, it's dangerous. Boxing relies on clarity of intent to protect fighters as much as it does to entertain fans. When doubt exists, reaction time changes. Defensive choices shift. Damage accumulates differently. That ripple doesn't stop at the top. If power and influence can shape the ring for stars, what happens to fighters without leverage? The ones who need exposure. The ones who can't say no. Pressure doesn't have to be spoken to be effective. Sometimes it's implied. Sometimes it's wrapped in opportunity. Sometimes it's never said at all. Why this moment matters. No documents leaked. No recordings surfaced. No contracts were exposed. And yet, the damage began anyway. Because trust doesn't require proof to fracture. It only requires doubt. Fighters spoke carefully. Analysts chose words like lawyers. Promoters avoided clarity. That kind of fog doesn't appear when everything is clean. It appears when too many people know where the lines are and don't want to say them out loud. Boxing survives on belief. More than any other sport. One moment can define a career. One punch can rewrite history. That's why authenticity matters. And once authenticity is questioned, even legitimate performances get...
Brother's going to be able to get inside on him, put his weight on him, tie him up.
I hear your critique on fighting guys the same size as you. Is that why you guys wouldn't let me fight Conor?
Yeah, you're fucking huge. Conor weighs 145 pounds, 155 pounds.
Yeah, but he says he can beat me.
Dragged into suspicion. Innocence doesn't protect anyone in an environment that no longer feels trustworthy.
First rule is for Paul's own safety. He'll be able to wear headgear like an amateur boxer, but Tyson won't be wearing any of that.
All the comments think this is real.
Second rule is that Jake is allowed to tag team with his brother Logan Paul. He'll be able to bring Logan in, and they'll both be able to fight at the same time.